Hello there, all you wonderful, beautiful ladies and gentlemen of the internet. Welcome to another film review today on this channel, and today I'm talking about the Ralph Bakshi animated Lord of the Rings film, released in 1979, only a couple years after the original Star Wars film. Yes, that's right, A New Hope. And funny connection because George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars, was a big fan of The Lord of the Rings and J.R.R. Tolkien in general. And so the person that wrote the Hero's Journey book, I think he also personally knew Tolkien. I heard this story in film school a while back, but he gave Lucas notes on how to make Star Wars. And Lucas also expressed that he read the books and it was a big inspiration for him to make Star Wars. And a couple years later, Ralph Bakshi went through the honor of making this film. And I mean that, it's honorable that this movie was made, and it was good. And I want to talk about that, but in a minute, because that's what this video is about. It's about Ralph Baksh's The Lord of the Rings animated film. It's not perfect. It definitely has some goofy moments in it that I don't think were intended to be goofy, and it's it's definitely commendable, and it's definitely respectful that he went through the lengths he did for this film for the time it was made too. And it's a shame it never got a follow-up or a sequel, but there's a reason behind that. And you know, these are all topics I should discuss later on in the video. For right now, like I said, I want to talk about my personal discussions as a child with The Lord of the Rings. So I was about 7 years old when the first The Lord of the Rings film came out, The Fellowship of the Ring, in in 2001. 2001. I'm sorry. So the first live-action North American The Lord of the Rings film. There's a lot of The Lord of the Rings movies and shows before these films existed, which a lot of people may not know about, but here I have the Blu-ray box set, and I wanted this for the longest time. I love the aesthetic of it, like it's like a big book. I just love the way, like, you know, the Blu-ray releases look in the middle there and everything. Like, this is, I feel like this, at the time, I felt like this was the definitive way to own these movies. And unfortunately, it's not, and we're going to get into that in a second. There is a 4K release, but it's kind of, honestly, just best to pass up on it because it's not perfect either. And the reason why this is because the 4K release, I believe, to use some DNR. I'm not sure if that's fully true, if that's what it was. But there are scenes, like in Return of the King, where Gandalf's staff disappears, and like, but it's like really far away, like the top of his staff does. When there's like a camera shot of that's like filmed, like where he's, I forgot the location, but it's when him and Pippin are at the castle. But I think it was Gondor. I don't think it was Gondor. I can't remember where it was. I don't know, but I'm not too familiar with locales with the Lord of the Rings yet, and I'm not too, like, I don't know everything by name, by everything that's named by heart yet in the Lord of the Rings, like the story by heart yet. Well, I know the story by heart kind of, but I haven't seen these movies since I was 7 till recently, or 9 years old. I saw Return of the King. I remember this memory so well. I will talk about the skin in my Return of the King review, I'm sure. That I remember one morning, I was 9 years old, and it was summer. I think it was 2004. It had to be 04, maybe it was 03. And my older brother, he was really into these movies when I was a kid with his friends. This is like a generational phenomenon to them, and I got to experience it with them as well a little bit. Because that's how I became very aware of these movies. And so I remember one morning I woke up and it was summertime, or maybe it was a weekend. I just remember being warm outside, and he and his friends camped out in our backyard this weekend. So there was a tent in the backyard, and I wanted to go see what they were doing. And so I went out there, and I saw them watching Return of the King on a DVD player that morning, and I watched it with them. And that's how I first saw the movie. Yep, very, very, very special memory. And I watched it again this past Christmas, and 20 years later, yep, I didn't intend it for it to be that way. That's just how it was. And I caught myself crying on 3 different occasions at the ending of that movie, because wow, it's beautiful. And I just recently discovered that Fellowship of the Ring has a weird green tint on this release, so that's a shame. But there's a way to watch it with the color corrected version, which I have now. So yay for that. Same thing with this film. I watch it off a streaming platform for sure. That's all I'm gonna say about that. So if you're a fan of the Peter Jackson trilogy, and you've never seen the Ralph Bakshi film, and you like animation in general, check it out. It's pretty, like I said, it's pretty honorable and faithful to the story. Yes, obviously there's some differences from the Peter Jackson version, but it's still essentially the exact same story as you see in those films and reading the books, essentially. Yes, of course, what the film basically is, it's like all the Fellowship, but like it doesn't feel like it's quickly paced or anything. It's just, you know, it's just really focused on like It's more focused. I feel like there's a lot more dialogue going on in this version than there is in the live action one, and it's like the first quarter, or at least up to the first half of the Two Towers. I'm not sure if the battle, like the war at the end of the film happens when it was raining. I forgot what the war was called. I completely forgot. See, like I said, I don't know all my locale names and everything. I'm gonna look more educated about this probably by the time I review The Lord of the Rings: The Fellowship of the Ring, which is a beautiful film. I know it is. So yeah, this movie is doing a lot to me and my older brother and his friends and some of my friends too who have seen these movies. The Lord of the Rings was a phenomenal. It was a generational phenomenon when it was coming out during that time, to 2001 to 2 to 3. And I remember it very well, and it meant a lot to me, a lot of people at that time. It did, and everybody saw those movies. And now I talk to people who are like 10 years, maybe only 5 to 10 years younger than me. I'm 30, by the way, and they're like, "Oh, I never seen those movies. I don't even care." I'm like, "What the hell? Go check them out. They're amazing movies." And I feel like most people who I talk to nowadays have only seen Fellowship 2, which is weird because they're like, "Oh, it's really good." I'm like, "Then watch the other two." Like, Return of the King was regarded as like the perfected third film in a trilogy. Even today, it kind of is. And yeah, it really is a great movie. It is. So again, if you want something that's kind of simple though, right, to get into the Lord of the Rings, I guess this movie, the Ralph Bakshi animated film, is not a bad place to start. Sending with the Rankin Bass release of the Hobbit film, but be warned and be aware that these movies are a little strange. They are very 70s movies, but they're also still good, and they're still very respectful of Tolkien's story. And The Hobbit definitely feels very more family friendly, but that's because it was made by, well, first of all, the book is kind of family friendly. You're supposed to read to your kids. Tolkien was, while he was writing it and reading it, he was reading it to his kids when they went to bed at night. So that's a part of how and why The Hobbit became the way it was. And also the original animated film, the Rankin Bass version. That's the studio that made the classic Christmas animated stop motion movies like The Little Drummer Boy, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. They even made Frosty the Snowman. The Santa Claus is coming into town. Yep, and that's the same studio that made The Hobbit. Which is kind of neat to know that. And I love those movies very much. They're near and dear to my heart. Maybe next holiday season I'll do a review of a couple of those movies. And I also loved this movie. And when I was a little kid, my parents decided to rent it from Blockbuster because they were also in the hype of The Lord of the Rings, and they showed it to us, and I'm very thankful for that. And then fast forward, and now this is in the year 2001 or 2, fast forward a few years later to 2011, 2012 or so, or maybe 2011, between that time, the first Hobbit film, the Peter Jackson movie, was coming out. And so my junior year English teacher, I forgot her name, but I think her name started with a B, so I'm going to call her Mrs. B for now, or Miss B. I forgot her name completely, but she was a sweet lady. I was very fortunate with English and art teachers growing up. For the most part, they were pretty good teachers. She was like, "We're going to read The Hobbit. That's going to be what we're going to do for English class. We're going to read The Hobbit," and it was absolutely for fun. She didn't say that, but it was definitely for fun because she was a big fan and she was excited for the movie. And she's like, she also wanted us to read The Hobbit because of the movie. And she's just like, "You guys got to read the book before the movie comes out, so you guys don't cheat about the story and like about like story structure and stuff." Yes, of course it was, to learn about like how good stories are written and all that. But I could tell she definitely wanted us to read it for fun, which I'm very thankful and happy about that. Looking back at my life, 10 plus years back, that was a good time. It was. And I loved The Hobbit. I still do to this day. And I'm reading it again to my daughter, River. And it's just, it's a good story. It's a good time. But right now, again, I know I barely said anything about Ralph Bakshi's The Lord of the Rings movie. Why was there not a sequel? Why does it only stop at the beginning of the Two Towers? Well, first of all, the film was a little over 2 hours and a half. No. It's a little over 2 hours. I think it's 2 hours and 15 or 20 minutes. It's fairly long, but you feel like there's like a lot going on constantly, so you kind of don't really mind the length. But there's some weird, trippy shots, especially when Frodo puts on the ring, which that's supposed to happen in the story anyways. But damn, like the way he did the ring race was genuinely terrifying, and I actually really liked it. And I think it's funny that the actor that played Aragorn tripped on his sword in one scene. I don't think that was intentional, but they kept it in the movie. Plus, when he draws his blade, the tip is gone in one scene, which is very strange. Again, this movie feels it doesn't feel quite different from the Peter Jackson cut, but also does, because it's two different directors with two different visions. But like, why did Ralph Bakshi not make a part 2? The movie was financially successful, and I even think it was critically acclaimed when it came out. I'm pretty sure people enjoyed it and liked it, and they're expecting more. The reason why he didn't make a sequel or a part 2 or a the Return of the King film adaptation is because the movie was a nightmare for Ralph Bakshi and his team to make. It's a very ambitious film for its time. You have to understand, this movie came out in the late 70s, people. This is shortly after Star Wars came out and Jaws and movies like that. If you watch those movies and then you see this movie, plus if you see his other works, you'll get more of an idea of like what he's made, which I seen Wizards and American Pop before I watched this. So I knew a little bit about Ralph Bakshi's background a little bit. And you watch it and you're kind of like, holy crap, this is before CGI and everything. Okay, this is like basically the film's most prominent special feature was rotoscoping with animation with real actors, and I think it paid off fairly well for the most part. Some scenes were a little awkward, but for the most part, they paid off fairly well. And it was pretty amazing that it turned out the way it did, but seeing how it was made at the time and seeing like how much effort they put into it, I think Ralph Bakshi felt incredibly overwhelmed by the end of the project. He's like, I'm done with The Lord of the Rings. I don't want to make a part 2. This was a nightmare to put together. And that to me is very, 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 very upsetting. But it's not like I'm gonna be like, oh, Ralph Bakshi, how dare you? No, actually, it's the complete opposite. I'm a passionate, artist too, so I get it. Like when you create this amazing project and people want to follow, but they expect more, and you feel incredibly burned out from that set project, it makes sense that you don't want to go back and make more of that. I totally, completely respect and understand that decision, but at the same time, though, it is sad. It's definitely a sad decision. It's like it is a bummer. It is a bummer that he decided not to make part 2. It is. There's no denying that. But what we have is still a fairly decent, amazing film. And then Rankin Bass picked up the sequel for Return of the King, and that was strange. Yes, they made Return of the King, an original animated Return of the King movie, and it's heavily focused on Frodo and Sam, which kind of sucks. Because I'm not saying that Frodo and Sam's story sucks. No, far from it. No. I'm just saying it sucks that there's no focus on Aragorn or Merry or Pippin and Gandalf, and it's like, and what they were going through, and the other characters in that story. It's like, what? That kind of sucks. But it is what it is. Guys, this was a good watch. I've only seen it once. This is just coming off my first impression. I watched it a couple weeks ago. I meant to make this video a lot earlier. I'm sorry, but life got in the way. There's just been a lot going on recently. And I'm going to share with you something a little exciting. At least one person finally said, yes, we should make more game reviews. I don't want to give away. Actually, I'm not going to say what the game is, but let's just say it's one of the most iconic and popular video games of all time that came out in the very early 2000s, at the dawn of the new century. So let's just say that, and that could be any game, I know. So I'm not going to say what it is, but it's a very important game that launched a generation on a new competitor in the world of gaming. So that kind of gives it away a little bit. It has to do with console gaming. So, okay, I said too much. You guys are going to find out. Don't worry. And I'm excited to make this game review. So, it's ambitious. But it might be a while until it comes out, but it is being worked on. And sooner or later, I'm going to talk about the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Not in one video. No, 3 separate videos for sure, just like the trilogy. This is the definitive trilogy of all trilogies when it comes to films. And this, to me, I grew up on this, okay? This came out when I was so young. I had such an impression on films being ambitious and big because of these movies, and that happened to a lot of people. And if you watch the behind the scenes stuff, wow, it's some amazing stories, and it's so endearing and heartwarming how the cast members became friends, how they got to know each other, and how they all came from all around the world. I did not know that. And the actor that played Aragorn, Viggo, had no background experience with The Lord of the Rings at all, but his son did, and his son advised him to please play Aragorn, and so he did. And I think that's ingenious, because I cannot imagine any other actor being any other character from these films. To me, these actors are these characters. It's one of those few moments. It's just like how, just like freaking the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. Like, those actors are those characters to me. And even debatably, the original Star Wars trilogy, the Star Wars prequel trilogy. Actually, the entire 6-movie Star Wars saga. It's like those actors are those characters, period. Right? That's what's like to me and to a lot of people, I'm sure. So, not that there's anything wrong with other adaptations or versions or whatever, but like the Lord of the Rings is a film trilogy that should never be redone in live action, at least. And to me, it's like This is the reason why I so badly want a really good live action Dragon Ball movie, or even a really good live action Akira movie, or even a really good live action, like, I didn't want this, but it's good we have it. A live action One Piece show now, and a live action Sonic trilogy. I think the Lord of the Rings films and Star Wars obviously has a little bit to do with it inspiring those products to turn out the way they did. A little bit. I mean, if it wasn't for the Lord of the Rings, we wouldn't have Star Wars, right? I mentioned that story in the beginning of this video. And if it wasn't for Star Wars, we wouldn't have Dragon Ball. Or at least, if it wasn't for the Lord of the Rings, Star Wars wouldn't be the same story it is. And if it wasn't for Star Wars, Dragon Ball wouldn't be the same story that it is. And if it wasn't for Dragon Ball, One Piece wouldn't be the same story that it is. It's like these 4 humongous franchises all connect in a beautiful, poetic, symbolic way. And I'm a big fan of all of them. I love Star Wars, I love the Lord of the Rings, I love Dragon Ball, I love One Piece. I think it's so beautiful how they all kind of connect in that kind of way. How like each visionary, each artist, each creator was inspired by the previous person's work, and at least, and that's a part of that story that they told. I'm not saying Dragon Ball is 100%, One Piece is 100% influenced by Dragon Ball. Like no, but a big part of it definitely is. And Dragon Ball, a big part of Dragon Ball is definitely inspired by Star Wars, and a big part of Star Wars is definitely inspired by the Lord of the Rings. That's fucking awesome. It is. Okay, guys, I think I talked about this movie long enough. Thanks for watching the whole video if you had. I really appreciate it. And with that being said, till next time, guys, I am the YTK Reviewer, and I'll see you in the next video. Look forward to my game review. I'm excited for that to come out. Peace out and take care. And remember, if there's something in life that you gotta do, and you're like, and you need motivation, remember what Eric Gordon said before he went to war. He said, "For Frodo, you charge into battle." Just don't forget that. Just do it for Frodo, right? Do it for Frodo. Okay, I'm being silly. But for real though, check out this movie. It was good. It was good. If you're familiar with the more popular films, I'll say it again. I'll say it for the last time. Check out Ralph Bakši's film. It does have a bit of a big cult following as well. I feel like it's definitely becoming a bit more popular. I'd be surprised to see it get like a re-release in theaters for like an anniversary event or something. That'd be cool. I missed out on the re-releases of these movies, which is a real shame. It's a real shame. You know, I really wish I didn't, because these movies are incredibly special to me. And if they ever get released in theaters ever again, I would love to go see them. Absolutely. That'd be amazing. All right, guys, have a good one. Take care. Farewell. And thanks again for watching.